All right, welcome back to Under 450K, where I try and find suburbs under $450,000, which is getting pretty hard these days. But there are still some available out there. And after following last video that I made on Townsville and Rockhampton and Gladstone, I decided, well, let's try find possibly the next booming area or more or less the cooler suburbs in where there's a little bit of price activity but isn't. And that sort of led me to one specific area. And that area is actually in Melbourne, and that area is Bendigo. And now there are a lot of pros and cons with investing into Bendigo at this very point in time. But to quickly summarize, if you don't want to watch this whole video, to invest in Bendigo, you will not get a positively geared property on a 12% deposit. You will most likely have to cop a month on month effect in cash flow. At least for the next year, you're going to have negative cash flow until rents start to rise. However, I do think Bendigo has excellent potential. It is a regional hub, but it is a very solid regional hub, unlike some other regional areas in Western Australia, WA, in Queensland even. Victoria is one of those states where it is a multi-city area. When we talk about Victoria, we're not just talking about Melbourne itself. In Victoria, we have Ballarat, we have Bendigo, we have Shepparton, we have Melton. There's a lot of mini cities all throughout Victoria. But one specific suburb like Bendigo has a lot of the right factors that, as a property investor, we are actually looking for. And I'm going to break those down for you. And like I said at the start of this video, you will not get instant equity by investing into Bendigo. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not the video to watch. This video is for those investors who are looking for a long-term play, looking to buy a property in a solid area that will have growth in the next 1 to 3 years, not much, but have some, but also be able to keep that property for the next 30 years if they wanted to. That's what I'm breaking down here. And there's a couple of suburbs I'm specifically looking at, and they are Kangaroo Flat, Golden Square, California Gully, and Eaglehawk. The main two that I'm looking at is Golden Square and Kangaroo Flat. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But like as always, I want to go through the data first, at least the short-term data. Again, make sure you verify your data from multiple sources, not just one source. There's a lot. There's Boom Score, there's HTag, there's DSR, which is the one that I highly recommend that you do. It is a paid source, but it is well worth the money. But let's just go through Kangaroo Flat. Right. Kangaroo's Flat days on market is sort of on the rising. It's gone from 50 days to about 68 days. Now, obviously, we want this to be trending downwards. On DSR data, it actually is trending downwards, and I'm going to follow what DSR data says, and I think you should too. But I've also talked to property managers on the ground, and they said the market is slowing down a little bit. So I would possibly see that there's going to be a slight uptick in days on market on DSR. Stock on market is on 1.35%, which is very, very low. The Victoria State average is 3%. And the gross rental yield is about 4.65%. And the vacancy rate is 0.25%. So it's very, very tight rental market, which is going to cause rental yields to rise. Next to Kangaroo Flat, we have Golden Square, which is a very similar story. The days on market slightly increasing, but still within a good amount. It's being sold within 2 months, which is still pretty quick. And stock on market is slightly dropping, with rental yields slightly higher. Right? These are all signs of a cool market. Now, it's not like a Townsville, it's not like a Rockhampton, it's not like a Gladstone where it's incredibly competitive. But these are the suburbs where you can find great under market value deals. Right. And you need to understand, if the average is a 4.7 yield and a 4.65% yield, that means if you buy the right property and you put a 12% deposit, you can possibly get a close to 5% or above rental yield, which for a suburb like Melbourne, like Bendigo, that's extremely good. People achieve 6% yields in Townsville and Gladstone because they are such hot markets and there's such tight vacancy rates. That will happen to suburbs like Bendigo if it continues to rise at the rate it's going at. And what I mean by that is when we look at SQM research, again, completely free source, definitely recommend you use it. we can see that in this is California Gully. So let's look at Kangaroo Flat, which is 3555, and we go to asking rent. We can see the rent is rising about 5% year on year, right? So that's very good, and 10% on all houses. So if you have a 4 bedroom house, it's growing faster as well. So you're going to get great rental increases year on year, which will help you maintain the property, will increase your yields, and the RBA is tipped to cut rates next year, which means you'll reap the benefits next year if you get in now. Right? Don't get in when the RBA cuts rates and everyone wants to go buy in there. That's what creates a hot market, and that's what you also when you overbuy property. So we can see that it has the metrics of a cool market, and it also has the rising rents, which means there's a very good future for suburbs like this. Now, I don't want to just go through um, the rents, right? And why sort of the cash flow perspective of it, but also let's look at the sales price. Now, you can sort of see that it did have a bit of a spike, you can say, a bit of a spike since 2020, 2019, during the COVID times, right? This is when COVID happened and prices of everything started to go up, including houses. But it hasn't had its own real push done either by owner occupiers or investors of actual capital growth. And I think we can see that beginning to happen. And over the past 3 years, we haven't seen much in 3 bedroom houses. We have seen a bit in all houses, but really around 10%, 10 to 30% growth, which means there's plenty of room for these suburbs to grow. The really good thing about Bendigo and Golden Square and Kangaroo Flat in particular is that it's away from the very big flood zones that Shepparton has. There are still definitely some flood prone areas within Kangaroo Flat, and you should go to Vic Plan, and that will help you identify which those areas are. And there are a lot of good streets to actually go and buy a property in Kangaroo Flat and in Golden Square. And after talking to property managers on the ground, in the boots, not just online research, you've also got people who live in Kangaroo Flat who actually commute to work in Melbourne, which I also think is a bit ridiculous, but that's what people do apparently. And each to their own. If that's what they want to travel 2 hours, they can. Bendigo also does have 4 gold mines, I believe. But mining is not a big thing in Bendigo. It is one part of it. And we can also confirm that. If we actually have a look at the people who work in Kangaroo Flat and Golden Square, we can actually go down and see their occupation. If I can find it. If not, I'll just type it in. There we go. Occupation. In Kangaroo Flat and Golden Square in total, most of them are professional workers. The next biggest thing is laborers, then community, technicians, trade, sales workers. So it's a very diversified economy, right? We already know from a long time ago that Bendigo is a well diversified economy. It is not diversifying. And if we want to confirm this even more, we can. And the great thing about Bendigo is that it's already a well diversified economy that is continuing to grow year on year. And the way we confirm this is by simply going on to Bendigo ID. And we can see that healthcare and trade dominates the area, retail, trade, construction, education, manufacturing, and all the way down here is mining. So even though Bendigo has 4 gold mines, mining is one of the least important industries in that area, in fact, right? We've got healthcare being the biggest. So it's massive in that area. So we know it's well diversified. Now, upon doing this research, what I could find that is that Golden Square and Kangaroo Flat, you could find properties under $500,000, same as well as California Gully and Eagle Hawk. In Kangaroo Flat and Golden Square, you won't find, or you'll find very minimal building approvals. So there's not a lot of supply coming in. There's not a lot. There are not a lot of lots being sold, not from developers, not from new housing constructions. So you can generally find a good area, a good street pretty easily and find a good property. Stock is low. Don't forget that stock is still incredibly low, but there are no developments happening there in terms of housing. However, if we go to Eagle Hawk and California Gully, now I still do think these are great areas to invest your money in if you're okay with handling a bit of negative cash flow. But you have to be careful what streets and what areas you buy in Eagle Hawk, California Gully, and especially Long Gully. If you look here, Eagle Hawk has about 25 lots being sold, which means that there will be potentially future houses being built there. And they're on large pieces of land, some 600, some 594, etc. They're large pieces of land, right? You can build big homes. Even in California Gully, there's big places, there's new housing developments there. So be careful what streets you go in and buy in those areas. Now, Long Gully actually has excellent rental yields. However, it is a well-known public housing commission area. Contact your property manager and talk to them about which streets they are on. I can't remember exactly, but I believe it's between Sparrowhawk Road, Happy something Valley Road. I think Happy Valley Road and that sort of area is all housing commission. So you're definitely well to stay away from there. Stay on the east side of California Gully and Eagle Hawk, definitely. Right. And you definitely don't want to be investing into all of Bendigo. There's a lot of suburbs in Bendigo. You don't want to be going into Flora Hill or Spring Gully. They're all new suburbs, way overpriced. Maiden Gully, new suburb. Don't even bother. If you're trying to be smart with your investment and trying to find the next cool suburb, definitely do your research between Golden Square, Kangaroo Flat, Eagle Hawk, and California Gully. Those are the ones that you want to be targeting in Bendigo, at least. Now, again, is the data ideal? Absolutely not, right? The data is not perfect. I've even talked to managers on the ground, and they've said that the market is slowing down, which is never a good sign. We want to have house price pressure. But the one thing I can say for sure is that vacancy rates are incredibly low. Rents are rising incredibly fast, almost 5% every year. And with interest rates cuts, holding these properties will be much more manageable than ever before. Now, if you think land tax is a big issue and you only have one property in Victoria, then you probably shouldn't be a property investor because you may pay land tax in Bendigo, but what you don't pay is high insurance premiums or high council rates. They're pretty average compared to areas like Townsville, Gladstone, and Rockhampton. And I just want to say this out there as well. There's really no perfect suburb, there's no perfect hot markets right now apart from regional Queensland and Perth. So if you're trying to find the next suburb without maybe willing to make some sacrifices, you're never going to find the right market, right? But if you want to invest in a well diversified economy with good job employment industries, with minimal building approvals, with a good supply to demand ratio, Bendigo might be the area for you. And the thing is, right, you can still wait 1 to 2 months and you can get in 2 months later and you'll still get a great deal, I believe. Things don't change that fast. It takes usually 3 to 6 months before we really before we really start seeing a cool market transition to a hot market. Remember, Bendigo is only really about 2 hours away from Melbourne. Ballarat's a bit closer, but Ballarat has a lot of housing approvals, and it's still it's much cooler market than Bendigo. That's what I'll say, from what I can see. But let me know your thoughts below, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Make sure you go and subscribe down below to my newsletter where I go to in detail about specific suburbs and specific metrics and why I think you should invest, you should wait, or you should jump out of those suburbs right now. I've been doing this for quite a while now. You should definitely go check them out and you can check whether I'm right or wrong as well in a lot of the cases. So until next time, peace out.